Nils Grevillius has spent an entire career investigating crime. We've invited him onto The Truth today to talk to us about none other than Jeffrey Epstein. So, Detective Grevillius, what's up? Did he commit suicide?
Almost certainly, but not in the context that you've been told.
Okay, we'll explain that.
Okay, well, just mere hours before Mr. Epstein was dangled, he was celled up with a man named Nicholas Tartaglione, who was a cartel assassin. So, if you're running the Metropolitan Detention Center, are you going to make a man who is on a high power inmate bunk with an assassin, especially if he's on suicide watch?
Well, the guy, his roommate, left the cell a week earlier, as I've read, and B, Epstein was not on a suicide watch. Quite the contrary. All of his associates who spoke to him within a day or two of his death reported that he was in good spirits, including his lawyer, who delivered the news that he felt like he was going to be able to get him out in relatively short order, that the prior court order would preclude the state from prosecuting him, and that Epstein agreed with that assessment and was pretty upbeat and optimistic.
Okay, so let's take it backwards a step here.
Sure.
Why did the Federal Bureau of Prisons have him on a special watch to be checked on pretty frequently? Their notes were that he was a suicide risk.
I'm not aware of that, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay, so what if Tartaglione and Epstein had a conversation along the lines of, Jeff, it's time for you to say goodbye, and if you can't do you, I'm going to be doing you, and you won't like the way that I do you. Now, I don't have any proof that that conversation took place, but it would make sense in light of some other things. Um, the more I look at this, the more what Epstein had going on down there on that island looks like a honey trap that he was operating probably or possibly to the benefit of one or more intelligence agencies. And what if instead of Epstein being the boss, what if Epstein was just the hotelier and the bon vivant who was running the whole show, the man who liked teenage girls so much, and the boss was Ghislaine Maxwell? She's the one who's still alive, isn't she, John?
Yes.
Citizenship in a whole choice of nations: France, the UK, the British Empire, and the US.
I don't know her citizenship status.
Okay, well, that's the truth of it. She could go anywhere. Why did she choose to stay in the United States? Okay, number one, and number two, have you ever taken a look at her father, Robert Maxwell?
Yes, yes.
Robert Maxwell was a Czecho immigrant to Great Britain who fought in the British Army during World War II. And his profile reads like either MI6 or Bond villain, one of the two. Take your pick.
I've read Mossad that he was known to have had a relationship with Mossad.
Well, perhaps. But so doesn't that make the context of what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had going on that island look more like a honey trap than anything else?
Well, certainly that's what I and many other people believe. But I do know that Alan Dershowitz said that there was absolutely no connection between Epstein and Mossad, that he was not an agent of Israel, and that he'd never told him that he had a relationship with the CIA.
Well, okay, maybe Mr. Epstein isn't the one with the relationship. Maybe the
Yeah,
person with the relationship is Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, let's look at one other contextual wrinkle. Southern District of New York FBI was being run by a character named James Dennehy. long-term special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And in February, Attorney General Bondi demanded full disclosure to her office of every single thing Southern District of New York had on Epstein, all evidence, records, tapes, interviews, 301s, 302s, everything. And the next day, Dennehy resigned, not from the case, not from the office that he held, but from the Bureau. And at the time that that occurred, the initial report was he was resigning, because he wanted the men and women in that office to dig in and outlast the Trump administration. That was the first report. And then a day or two later in the New York Times, they reported he was resigning out of disgust because Donald Trump had pardoned Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, for political corruption. And that's interesting to me. Why didn't Mr. Dennehy, if he was so high-minded, why didn't he resign when Joe Biden pardoned his entire family?
Or he could have resigned the day that Trump was elected on November the 6th,
Right.
2024. Why
And
did he
then
wait so long?
and then it gets even better. So Dennehy is a special agent of the Bureau, and he doesn't specialize in fraud, banking related matters, organized crime, trafficking of minors, any of that. Dennehy's bent focus and entire career in the Bureau is as a counterintelligence man. So if he's still in the Bureau, he has no choice about whether or not he has to testify, does he, Mr. Gordon?
That I don't know.
Well, the
If he
Bureau,
was guilty of something, he would be able to assert a Fifth Amendment right, but I don't know that what he would be alleged to have done. And if he's a private citizen, I don't think that it changes anything. I think that he could be subpoenaed, questioned, and if he has a Fifth Amendment claim, he can assert it. But if he doesn't, then he has to testify anyway.
I think are correct on that count, but I find the context of his resignation rather smelly, Mr. Gordon.
On that, we agree, Detective. Absolutely. So, just a little background here. You worked for the L.A. Police Department for how long?
Never.
Never. Well, where did you work as a detective?
I started as a cavalry scout in the Army, and then I got
Okay,
recruited to counterintelligence, worked counterintelligence in the Army. And then after the Army, I got recruited by the Pinkerton Service, among others, and I worked as a special agent of the Pinkerton organization out of their Wilshire field office in Los Angeles.
gotcha. So you've been a snoop, a private detective.
That's correct.
Okay, not with law enforcement per
Well, a
se.
counterintelligence agent is a sworn law enforcement officer under U.S. Code 1811.
Okay, but in the military, right?
That's correct.
Okay, well that counts. So just zoom out 30,000 feet. You think you believe that Epstein did commit suicide, even though I have watched a video that Wolves and Finance has up that you can go watch right now. Zach, I can't remember his name, Gallipolis something, um, and he draws attention to the fact that that video that we've been shown now, that's in the public domain, if you look carefully, you can see what appears to be an orange jumpsuit, barely noticeable on the side of the frame. It looks like they are entering the area that we were told that no one entered. We don't see them leave on the video, but you can clearly see them entering. Um, with that additional knowledge, would you perhaps conclude that Epstein was murdered? The coroner or the pathologist, the medical pathologist that Epstein's brother paid to look at the autopsy concluded that it was not a suicide. That there was blunt force trauma that would not be consistent with a suicide.
Well, Mr. Gordon, I've seen many men after they've been strangled to death and things like that. And to hang somebody is to strangle them with a ligature. What would I have to do to get John Gordon into a ligature sufficient to kill him? I'd have to brutalize him. I'd have to hold him down. I'd have to do a lot of violence, not a little bit of blunt force trauma, a lot. The other thing is this video, they're working from a copy of a copy of a copy. They're not working with the original material.
So the video is of no value. It would not be admissible in a court of law if there's no chain of custody.
It's useless.
Yes.
It's window dressing
But
on.
what if you can see an orange jumpsuit passing by a little sliver of the camera going into presumably going into Epstein's cell? Wouldn't that raise a lot of suspicion? Wouldn't you want to know who that was?
I would love to know who it was, but
Me
I'm
too.
not seeing anything in the autopsy material that I've looked at to suggest to me that Epstein was killed by anybody other than Epstein. In terms of kinetic, that doesn't mean that Epstein wasn't told to kill himself to avoid being killed.
Well, I've spent an unhealthy amount of time looking at this. I'm not a detective. I've never been trained as a detective, but I have practiced law criminally. I worked for the district attorney in Bibb County, Georgia for 2 years while I was in law school. And then I represented a young lady who was charged with murder when I first became uh, a lawyer and practicing. Um, so I've had a little exposure. I don't claim to be an expert, but um, the, the problem that I have, we were told that Pam Bondi had the file. She was reviewing and it would be released. Then we get nothing. That is highly suspicious to me. Now, I would probably accept Pam Bondi, who I like, Cash Patel, who I've met, but I don't know. I'm not as big a fan on Cash Patel as everybody else seems to be. I don't dislike him. I just there's something about the guy that does not instinctively make me like jump on board. But he did good work with the Russia investigation. That's why he has risen to the top with David Neven, the congressman from California, Nunez, and then the everybody loves Dan Bongino and thinks that he walks on water. So I actually want to believe them, and maybe the easiest solution is what we are actually being told. Maybe it's just exactly what they are saying. But there's one little problem, that one little sticking point that I can't get past. The U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who prosecuted uh, Epstein,
Costa,
yeah, Acosta, uh, they asked him in a Senate confirmation hearing, "Why'd you go light on Epstein?" He said, "I was told to. I was instructed to because he was intelligence." Hello, I can't get past that. And so you've got a guy who is flagrantly a child predator, a human trafficker, and a uh, running a prostitution ring is basically what it amounted to. And we find out that he had connections with intelligence. Now, it could be, and I have considered this possibility as well, that maybe he did have a connection with intelligence, but maybe intelligence had absolutely nothing to do with the honeypot. I think that's a stretch, frankly, but it's possible they didn't know, or that they did know and they looked the other way. Maybe he was actually, well, I mean, what does Bill Gates have to offer the CIA? Or Bill Clinton for
access,
that matter. Bill Clinton's
access.
already been president. He's retired. What does compromising him have to do with anything when he's already been in hot water for Monica Lewinsky? I mean, what is the motivation? They can't control him. They don't Why would they want to control Bill Clinton? Why would they want to control Bill Gates?
I don't think that Gates or Clinton were the
The
objects
subjects.
of the operation.
That's another theory that I think is probably valid. They just got swept up in it.
How about this? What if they were the window dressing to make it look nicer to lure other men in? In other words, I'm going to have
Ah,
access
detective.
to Bill Gates and Bill Clinton if I go to Pitcairn
Legitimacy.
Island. Right, exactly. And that's often how a human intelligence operation is played. You're going to be in this milieu where everybody's relaxed and enjoying themselves, and they're going to be charismatic, interesting people there, and you're going to drop your guard. And while you're there, you're going to do things you might not otherwise do, and you might become garrulous at times that you should not be garrulous. And we might have access to your telephone and your other devices while you're there. I don't know. I wasn't running the job. But I will say that the intelligence services of most nations, John, are amoral. To use teenage girls as bait would be de rigueur.
Why teenage girls? I mean, you don't have to have teenage girls to be bait. Why wouldn't you just have a 21-year-old? There are lots of really pretty 21-year-olds. Why do we have to cross that line is the other question that I wondered. Why did Epstein have to cross that line? Oh, he liked him young. Okay, well 21 is plenty young, okay?
John, I agree with you, but wouldn't that pre-qualify your prospects a bit? In other words, you're getting men who are in there looking at and looking for risky behavior.
So you're saying that underage girls would be more alluring than of age girls? I'm not following
For
you.
for some men, yes, and for some women.
Yeah. Well, I'll just be honest with you. I liked the girls when I was in high school and college, but I knew never, ever, ever, ever to have any association with a woman under the age of consent, ever. It was just a line that you did not cross, and you'd be a damn fool if you did, because it was illegal. One, and no, illegal two, and immoral one.
Right.
And so
Well, okay.
I can't assimilate that part of this. It's just
That's
it's
because you're not a psychopath, John.
well, you think all these guys that went to Epstein Island were psychopaths
Some of them
that
clearly,
engaged in the illicit activity?
some of them clearly were, weren't they?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know who went to Epstein Island.
Well, the
I've not.
definition of a psychopath, Mr. Gordon, is a man with no conscience.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Yes, defined that way. I'm sure. I think that's a symptom of a psychopath, isn't it? But not the entire complexity of
I
the
think
disease.
it's the overarching idea of a psychopath is no conscience, and you can add to it a metastatic ego and an
Yes.
amazing ability to inculcate sympathy in third party dupes.
Hey, producer Anthony, would you please look up metastatic for me? Jump on that one. I want to add that to my vocabulary. This detective Grevillius is a one smart cookie. I'm learning a lot here. So carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt you at my reckless attempt at humor.
No, no, it's all good. I mean, there's some known characteristics of the psychopath. Let's add another one here, John. How about needing to be treated specially just to feel normal?
Hmm.
What about using
I just
drugs
like to
and
be
alcohol?
treated normally for a change instead of forget special. Just give me normal respect.
Right. Well,
I had a lady
uh,
at the fast food counter this morning that wouldn't give me a piece of bread with my black beans and rice. I'm Rodney Dangerfield on steroids.
well, should have dyed your hair purple, John, if you were going in there looking for respect. What were you thinking? So,
Oh,
so
Lord.
those are characteristics of a psychopath. Um, and once a man becomes a psychopath, you can't make him unpsychopath. It's a permanent state of being. It's a personality disorder. It's not psychosis like bipolar disorder or paranoid schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. It's permanent.
You don't think it's genetic? You think that it
No.
is a a learned habit or
It is inculcated by dint of reward for negative behavior, a random reward, not consistent reward.
Hmm.
Brian Koberger, the man who just pleaded guilty to the four college girl murders up in Idaho, is a psychopath who probably got inculcated reward through social media and searchable internet porn. And the reason he pleaded to that, John, was probably because he didn't want his parents or the general public to know the search history of his pornography in his phone and computer.
Wow.
These are
All right.
men with
So
secrets, John.
let's run down the list real quick in the minutes remaining. You believe that Epstein did commit suicide, maybe under duress. That if you don't kill yourself, I'm going to kill you, and it's going to hurt a lot. It was and that he was likely intelligence. You seem to be pretty clear that that is a subtext of this whole thing.
I think that that's the whole shooting match, as they say down in Georgia, John.
Yeah. So release the list or not?
Release the entire file and just let it hang where it may.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why they haven't. I think this is just my analysis, looking at it contextually. They're still deriving benefit from the operation and or whatever foreign partner existed in this, whether it's MI6 or French DGSC or Mossad, is still running cases based on the work done by Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein.
I think that's a very compelling analysis. I think you may very well be spot on. So with the you say release the whole case files, and that would include the list, whatever that looks like. I mean, they could be on the back of paper napkins or grocery bags or legal pads or a Excel spreadsheet, or maybe it's just a Outlook contact list. I don't know. I'm torn about whether we should see a list because I suspect that there may be people on the list that just knew Epstein. Maybe they knew him socially, had never been to Epstein Island. Maybe they were on the list where he had invited them. And what if they didn't go? Are we really going to wreck these people's lives and destroy their marriages for something that they had no complicity in? That seems to be a major risk to me that I think bears some consideration.
Okay, I'm one of those guys who likes to see everything, John. You know, I've known a lot of bad people in my life. I knew Suge Knight before he went to prison. Met him a few times. Huh? I've met a few political characters who are absolutely notorious. You remember James Trafficant?
Yeah, he killed Kennedy or was involved.
You know,
Did he not?
I've talked to a few bad people in my day.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not worried about the bad people. I'm worried about the innocent people who may have just, I use the example on a podcast earlier today that I was interviewed for, and they were asking me about the list. Did I think the list should be revealed? And I was like, absolutely not. I mean, I think you categorize it in three categories. A, people who you have proof positive, they're, i.e., videoed having sexual relations with a minor. Bam, go to jail, do not collect $500, don't pass go. There's those names can be released. Public condemnation is an appropriate result. The people who went there and may have had sex with someone of age, was it consensual? Who is to say that it was consensual? Now, if the video shows that he was raping the girl, then that's not consensual. Same category. He's in category one. But what if you go to Epstein Island, you meet a girl at dinner, she's 21 years old, and she wants to have sex with you? Are you really going to trot her name out in public? Or not her name, but the perp, and ruin his life and ruin his career and ruin that person's marriage probably
How ruined will it be?
permanently.
We live in the age of the Diddy party, Mr. Gordon. Somebody's going to be scheduling 5 Diddy parties this weekend. I'm being cynical here,
No,
okay?
I got it. I understand. And I understand that the quick and easy things, just put it all out there and be done with it. But I do worry about the innocent people whose lives may be ruined, who were guilty of nothing.
How about all of the people who are going to be impugned by dint of the accusations of people who know nothing? And that has already occurred, like with Alan Dershowitz
Yeah, and
and
he had to defend himself, and his answer is put it all out there and let them defend themselves like I did. I
yeah,
just don't think that's right.
I
I
well,
mean, I'm going to put your name on the list and you can defend yourself. I bet you Dershowitz spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending himself. And he was falsely accused. I can't go there. But anyway, that's a
people
minor.
have said bad things about me before, John. I'm
Well,
happy to
me too.
defend
That's probably
myself.
why I'm hypersensitive to the matter. I ran for office twice, you know. I know what it's like in the arena. So let's run down the list real quick. JFK.
What about him?
Oswald killed him acted alone?
President Kennedy was the last war hero Democrat president, and he was shot down and slaughtered by an American communist named Oswald. And the hard left has done everything they can to drive Oswald's getaway car ever since. And I won't brook any nonsense about anybody other than Lee Harvey Oswald having murdered that president.
Oh my God. Detective, how much time do we have?
Lee Oswald tried to kill General Walker weeks before he killed President Kennedy.
That's one I do not have an answer to. I do not understand the General Walker
I
transaction.
do.
I don't know anybody who says that Oswald didn't try to do that. I cannot assimilate that.
With the same rifle.
I'm not sure
With the
about
same
that.
rifle.
But
With the same rifle.
okay,
And
so do you believe that Oswald had a connection with the CIA?
I believe Oswald was under surveillance by the CIA. I think that James Jesus Angleton was running a case where he's watching Oswald after Oswald went to Mexico City to see who else Oswald was meeting with. After killing President Kennedy, Oswald left the book depository and was walking to a theater. He got detained by a Dallas police officer that he murdered, and
J.D.
then went
Tippett.
in. Yes, and then he went into the movie theater. Clearly, he was going somewhere to meet with someone.
Maybe he was going to meet his CIA handler.
Maybe he was under surveillance by the CIA on the day that it had occurred, and the handler knew that JFK had been killed and never made it to the meet. What if it was Cuban intelligence or somebody from the Fair Play for Cuba committee that Oswald was going to meet?
That's rank speculation. There's no evidence of that. Does the name G. Gordon Liddy mean anything to you?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
knew Gordon.
Okay. What about his deathbed confession to his son, St. John's Hunt, 60 miles south of where I'm sitting right now, saying that he was in Dealey Plaza on the day and he was part of the CIA cleanup squad? You can watch it on YouTube. It's right there.
Yeah,
What about LBJ's mistress, who said that she was with him the night before he came out of a meeting with high powered men, including Texas oil men? And he said, after tomorrow, those SOBs will never embarrass me again, in a very agitated state. What about the magic bullet theory? What about the fact that this?
they're all working. They're all working from copies of copies. They're not working with the original material in terms of all of the ballistics. Okay, John, it is my belief
They're
that
not. They've got the pristine bullet. What are you talking about?
they're working with copies of copies. They're working off of bad material. Okay, Oswald murdered Kennedy. Oswald was an American communist. Mark Lane, the man who wrote the books that started all of the
Rush to
nonsense about
judgment.
Oswald having not killed him, was also Jim Jones' lawyer. And the last man to see Jim Jones prior to Jim Jones ordering the assassination of Congressman Leo Ryan.
Well, I think that's guilt by association. I don't know what it's got to do with killing Kennedy. I mean,
I think
they're
I think that it has a lot to do with the American left doing every single thing they can to try to absolve Oswald, because in absolving Oswald, they're absolving themselves. Oswald was the face of Antifa in 1963.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I just can't go there with you, detective. I mean, do you know that LBJ was under investigation, and that Kennedy was dumping him
LBJ
from
was
the
a
ticket?
scumbag. Of course, he was under investigation. He was one of
Okay,
the biggest crooks in politics. He stole with both hands.
and you know that he was associated with a man who committed murder at a country club in I believe it was Fort Worth, and Billy. Let's see, I
Is
can't
that the
remember.
murder of E.C. Mullendore?
I can't remember. Um, I want to say it was Billy Saul's Estes, but I think that's who LBJ was in cahoots with something untoward and illegal. Uh, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but this guy was convicted of murder.
Hmm.
He was given the judge commuted his sentence. He was allowed to walk out of the courtroom after a jury of 12 convicted him, and
Hmm.
his fingerprint, and it's not disputed that I've been able to find, it was in the sniper's nest at the school book depository. I mean, it
Okay.
just goes on and on. The New York journalist went and interviewed Jack Ruby in prison in Dallas. She was the only journalist to interview him. She came back to New York. She called her friend Mary Smith and said, "Read the paper this week. I'm going to blow the lid off the Kennedy assassination." And she woke up dead the next day. I mean, there are 100 people have died suspiciously who were witnesses to the assassination. I mean, I just I like you, detective, and we've had fun, but I got to spend some more time with you on this one. Read The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot. Read The Unspoken by The Unspeakable rather. Bobby Kennedy, by the way, thinks that the CIA killed his uncle, and then Roger Stone's The Men Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ.
Okay.
Read those three books, and let's come back and
I've read
continue.
plenty of material. I'd like you to look up Mark Lane and his history
I
as a
read The Rush to
Marxist.
Judgment in 1973 when I was in college. That's what put me
He
on
also co-wrote
this.
the screenplay for Executive Action. Okay.
Okay. All right. And I've got a speeding ticket 10 years ago. So, what?
Why is he so hot and bothered to acquit Oswald after the fact?
Well, I don't know that it's acquit Oswald. I think it's to identify the true people who killed Kennedy.
No, Mark Lane's purpose was to acquit Oswald, and he said so.
Well, I don't know that, and
I do.
I know
That's what
there
he
were two
said.
ladies in the school book depository that said no one went up or came down the stairs to the sniper's nest,
How did Oswald's
5
rifle
minutes
get up
before
there?
or 5 minutes after, and we've got eyewitnesses that saw Oswald sitting at a table sipping a Coca-Cola 10 minutes before the assassination. He was sitting at the same table sipping the same Coca-Cola when the manager of the school book depository ran through the break room with two Dallas police officers. They said, "Who is that?" And he said that he works here. And they ascended the steps up to the sniper's nest. So I think there's and no paraffin on Oswald, no fingerprints on the gun from
It was his
Oswald.
rifle, and it had his DNA on it.
I don't think we did DNA in 1963.
They didn't have DNA at the time. Um, he used that rifle to attempt to assassinate Walker. It was his rifle. The 38 special that he used to kill the Dallas police officer was his. Okay. What reason did Oswald have to kill Officer Tibbets?
The fact of the matter is, those are both stumbling points for me. There are a lot of people, a lot of authors, a lot of journalists who believe that there was an Oswald body double, and there is a belief that this person was in the theater where Oswald eventually ended up. But that's a rabbit hole I really have not gone down, and I don't have good explanations for you on Walker or Tippett. I will concede those are very troubling facts. Committing one crime, I don't know, constitutes guilty of another. And some people, including myself, have speculated that he knew Tippett. Witnesses said that they appeared to know one another. Tippett walked pretty casually around the cruiser to encounter Oswald, and when he did, Oswald pulled the person that looked like Oswald pulled out the pistol and shot and killed him. I will concede that's a very troubling part
He's
of the picture to which I don't
Mr.
have an
Gordon.
explanation or answer.
In on future dates, let's visit the Bobby Kennedy killing, the Malcolm X killing, and the Martin Luther King killings. Those are
I
all
have no
very
knowledge
interesting
of
to
the
me.
Malcolm X killing. Let's talk about Bobby Kennedy right now for 2 seconds. Who killed him?
Sirhan Sirhan.
Oh my God, Jesus! All right, we'll come back.
I actually know members of the Sirhan family. He grew up in Pasadena.
He has no
He also
recollection.
he
He
al-
he
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 also it was
he.
his gun. He also said that he was there to kill Bobby Kennedy. I've seen the 4473 that he filled out when he bought the gun. He
And
was clearly there shooting a gun.
he was standing in front of Bobby Kennedy, and Kennedy's head was blown off from behind him.
He took a bullet right behind the ear, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a
So you think
second
he
gun.
reached around
Somebody
and
else
killed him?
saw a second gun, and it was one of the bodyguards or officers drew a gun. But the only gun that was discharged in that kitchen was that of Sirhan Sirhan. Now, what was Sirhan doing there with a gun? Sirhan admitted to shooting at Bobby Kennedy.
No, he did
Sirhan had
not.
a
That
long.
that is not true. He said he has no recollection of
No,
having
he
killed Kennedy.
he said that he was there, and his own
Well,
lawyer,
we know he was there, but he's never
and he
admitted to
said that he
killing
was there
Kennedy.
to kill Kennedy, and his own lawyer admitted that he had killed Kennedy.
Hey, detective, do you work
Yes,
for the
sir.
CIA?
I beg
Do you
your
have any
pardon?
CIA affiliations?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't have an Ivy League degree. Hell, I don't even have a high school diploma, John. They
Okay,
wouldn't let me park
that's
my
not
car in
responsive
Langley.
to the question. That feels
Huh?
like you just dodged my question.
I have a demonstrable history, a proven history for doing what it is that I've done professionally. How about James Earl Ray, the alcoholic Roman Catholic who was always broke and was suddenly flush with cash? And he identified a man named Raoul as having paid him to assassinate King. He had so much money, in fact, that he could flee the country. He went to Canada, then to England. Now, he described Raoul as swarthy, right? What if King were under surveillance by Hoover's men on the day that he was assassinated, both technical surveillance and physical surveillance? What if FBI agents actually witnessed the assassination of Martin Luther King by James Earl Ray? And I do believe James Earl Ray was the trigger man. But what if the party who paid James Earl Ray was not the KKK? What if it was Nation of Islam? Wasn't the KKK by 1968 pretty well infiltrated by Hoover? Didn't they have a situation where they couldn't turn left or right without stumbling over an FBI man or an FBI informant?
All right, so
How
what's your point?
well how well could the Klan have kept a secret like the assassination of King by 1968? I don't think they could have kept a lid on that by that point.
I have no insight into the assassination of MLK. I've spent 60 years reading about the Kennedy assassination. I was at home from the fourth grade watching As the World Turns with my mother when The Flash came on. I had had the flu and I'd just gotten out of bed. And I told myself, if you don't get out of bed, you're never going to get well. I went down to the family TV and sat next to my mom, and we watched Walter Cronkite announce that the president had been shot. And I've been obsessed with it ever since, and I still am. And just very candidly, no disrespect intended, but I was digging you until you've dug your heels in on JFK. I don't know any living American with a brain and any uh, serious reading of JFK's assassination that would conclude in 2025 that Oswald killed him. I mean, it is so far debunked and so implausible that I just don't know why you would say that.
I
And
believe that the CIA completely dropped the ball on that, that they allowed him to run in this nation after having defected to the Soviet Union once and after having visited the Soviet and Cuban embassies in Mexico City.
Yeah, we know
James
all
G.
that. Those are CIA
James, hang
talking
on, James
points.
Jesus
That's
Angleton
what
took
the
a
deep state has
chance,
been
and it
saying
was
for
a dumb
65
chance.
years.
He did not take the threat that Oswald posed seriously, and that's where the CIA screwed up, right there.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Detective Nils Grevillius. He's the author of 6 books, and he's got a seventh one coming out next year. And where is my note? You've gotten me so off my game here. The Last Lawman will be published in a few months. If you care to read it, I'm sure you can find it on Amazon, right?
It'll be for sale everywhere that Post Hill books are sold. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on your show, and I'm always ready to defend my thesis, John.
Well, what I can do and what I will do, I'll have you back on. Let me go collect all of the my notes made over the last 50 years, and we'll just break them down one by one. And you tell me why you think that the people that have put forth these theories are wrong. And I'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
There's another book toward the magic bullet theory written by a colleague of mine that I disagree with named Tink Thompson, and it's entitled 6 Seconds in Dallas. That's another one
I,
you might want to look at.
I've heard of the book. I have. I
Yeah.
will be happy to read it.
All right. Well, John, it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you, Nils. I appreciate your coming on. Nils Grevillius. He is a detective and an author and a very, what should we say, engaging guest. He certainly got me going and probably our audience. Have a great rest of your weekend.